Oh, it's computer.
Chapter 9. And on the 8th day it came to be that Moshe called Aharon and his sons and the elders of Yisrael. And he said to Aharon, Take for yourself a young bull as a sin offering, and a ram as an ascending offering, a perfect one, and bring them before YaHuWaH. And speak to the children of Israel, saying, Take a male goat as a sin offering, and a calf, and a lamb, both a year old, perfect ones as an ascending offering, and a bull, and a ram as peace offerings, to slaughter before YaHuWaH, and a grain offering mixed with oil. For today YaHuWaH shall appear to you. And they took what Moshe commanded before the tent of appointment, and all the congregation drew near and stood before YaHuWaH. And Moshe said, This is the word which YaHuWaH commanded you to do, so that the esteem of YaHuWaH appears to you. And Moshe said to Aharon, Go to the slaughter place and prepare your sin offering and your ascending offering, and make atonement for yourself and for the people. And make the offering of the people and make atonement for them, as YaHuWaH has commanded. So Aharon came near to the slaughter place and slew the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aharon brought the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the slaughter place and poured the blood at the base of the slaughter place. And the fat and the kidneys and the appendage on the liver of the sin offerings he burned on the slaughter place, as YaHuWaH had commanded Moshe. And the flesh and the skin he burned with fire outside the camp. And he slew the ascending offering. And the sons of Aharon presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled on the slaughter place all around. And they presented the ascending offering to him, with its pieces and head, and he burned them on the slaughter place. And he washed the entrails and the legs and burned them with the ascending offering on the slaughter place. And he brought the people's offering, and took the goat, which was the sin offering for the people, and slew it and made it a sin offering like the first one. And he brought the ascending offering and made it according to the right ruling. He also brought the grain offering, and filled his hand with it, and burned it on the slaughter place besides the ascending offering of the morning. And he slew the bull and the ram as a slaughter of peace offerings, which were for the people. And Aharon's sons presented to him the blood, which he sprinkled on the slaughter place all around, and the fat from the bull and the ram, the fat tail and the covering, and the kidneys and the appendage on the liver. And they placed the fat on the breasts, and he burned the fat on the slaughter place. But the breast and the right thigh Aharon waved as a wave offering before YaHuWaH, as Moshe had commanded. Aharon then lifted up his hand toward the people and blessed them, and came down from making the sin offering and the ascending offering and the peace offering. And Moshe and Aharon went into the tent of appointment, and came out and blessed the people. And the esteem of YaHuWaH appeared to all the people. And fire came out from before YaHuWaH, and consumed the ascending offering and the fat on the slaughter place. And all the people saw, and cried aloud, and fell on their faces. Chapter 10. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aharon, each took his fire holder and put fire in it, and put incense on it, and brought strange fire before YaHuWaH, which he had not commanded them. And fire came out from YaHuWaH, and consumed them, and they died before YaHuWaH. Then Moshe said to Aharon, This is what YaHuWaH spoke, saying, By those who come near me, let me be set apart, and before all the people let me be esteemed. And Aharon was silent. And Moshe called to Mishael and to Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aharon, and said to them, Come near, take your brothers from before the set-apart place out of the camp. So they came near and took them by their long shirts out of the camp, as Moshe had said. And Moshe said to Aharon and to Eleazar and to Ithamar his sons, Do not unbind your heads, nor tear your garments, lest you die, and wrath come upon all the people. But let your brothers, all the house of Israel, bewail the burning which YaHuWaH has kindled. Do not go out from the door of the tent of appointment, lest you die, for the anointing oil of YaHuWaH is upon you. And they did according to the word of Moshe. And YaHuWaH spoke to Aharon, saying, Do not drink wine or strong drink, you nor your sons with you, when you go into the tent of appointment, lest you die, a law forever throughout your generations, so as to make a distinction between the set apart and the profane, between the unclean and the clean, and to teach the children of Israel all the laws which YaHuWaH has spoken to them by the hand of Moshe. And Moshe spoke to Aharon and to Eleazar and Ithamar his sons who were left. Take the grain offering that is left over from the peace offerings made by fire to YaHuWaH, and eat it without leaven beside the slaughter place, for it is most set apart. And you shall eat it in a set apart place, because it is yours by law, and your sons by law, of the offerings made by fire to YaHuWaH. For so I have been commanded. From the breast of the wave offering and the thigh of the contribution you eat in a clean place, you and your sons, and your daughters with you, for they are yours by law, and your sons by law, which are given from the slaughterings of peace offerings of the children of Israel. The thigh of the contribution and the breast of the wave offering, they bring with the offerings of fat made by fire, to bring as a wave offering before YaHuWaH. And it shall be yours and your sons with you, by a law forever, as YaHuWaH has commanded. And Moshe diligently looked for the goat of the sin offering, and saw it was burned up. And he was wroth with Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons of Aharon, who were left, saying, Why have you not eaten the sin offering in a set-apart place, since it is most set apart? And Elohim has given it to you to bear the crookedness of the congregation, to make atonement for them before YaHuWaH. See, its blood was not brought inside the set-apart place. You should have eaten it without fail in a set-apart place, as I have commanded. And Aharon said to Moshe, See, today they have brought their sin offering and their ascending offering before YaHuWaH, and matters like these have come to me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been right in the eyes of YaHuWaH? And when Moshe heard that, it was good in his eyes. Chapter 11. And YaHuWaH spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying to them, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, These are the living creatures which you do eat among all the beasts that are on the earth. Whatever has a split hoof completely divided, chewing the cud, among the beasts, that you do eat. Only these you do not eat among those that chew the cud, or those that have a split hoof. The camel, because it chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the rabbit, because it chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the hare, because it chews the cud, but does not have a split hoof, it is unclean to you. And the pig, though it has a split hoof, completely divided, yet does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. Their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you do not touch. They are unclean to you. These you do eat of all that are in the waters, any that has fins and scales in the waters, in the seas or in the rivers, that you do eat. But all that have not fins and scales in the seas and in the rivers, all that move in the waters, or any living being which is in the waters, they are an abomination to you. They are an abomination to you. Of their flesh you do not eat, and their carcasses you abominate. All that have not fins or scales in the waters are an abomination to you. And these you do not abominate among the birds. They are not eaten. They are an abomination. The eagle and the vulture and the black vulture, and the hawk and the falcon after its kind, every raven after its kind, and the ostrich and the nighthawk and the seagull, and the hawk after its kind, and the little owl, and the fisher owl, and the great owl, and the white owl, and the pelican, and the carrion vulture, and the stork, the heron after its kind, and the hoopie, and the bat. All flying insects that creep on all fours is an abomination to you. Only these you do eat of every flying insect that creeps on all fours, those which have jointed legs above their feet, with which to leap on the earth. These of them you do eat. The arbel locust after its kind, and the solam locust after its kind, and the chargal locust after its kind, and the chagab locust after its kind. But all other flying insects which have 4 feet are an abomination to you. And by these you are made unclean. Anyone touching the carcass of any of them is unclean until evening. And anyone picking up part of the carcass of any of them has to wash his garments, and shall be unclean until evening. Every beast that has a split hoof, not completely divided, or does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcass is unclean. And whatever goes on its paws, among all the creatures that go on all fours, those are unclean to you. Anyone who touches their carcasses is unclean until evening. And he who picks up their carcass has to wash his garments, and shall be unclean until evening. They are unclean to you. And these are unclean to you among the creeping creatures that creep on the earth, the mole and the mouse, and the tortoise after its kind, and the gecko and the land crocodile, and the sand reptile, and the sand lizard, and the chameleon. These are unclean to you among all that creep. Anyone who touches them when they are dead becomes unclean until evening. And whatever any of them in its dead state falls upon becomes unclean, whether it is any wooden object, or garment, or skin, or sack, any object in which work is done. It is put in water, and it shall be unclean until evening. Then it shall be clean. Any earthen vessel into which any of them falls, whatever is in it becomes unclean, and you break it. Any of the food which might be eaten, on which water comes, becomes unclean, and any drink which might be drunk from it becomes unclean, and on whatever any of their carcasses falls becomes unclean. An oven or a cooking range, it is broken down. They are unclean, and are unclean to you. But a fountain or well, a collection of water is clean, but whatever touches their carcass is unclean. And when any of their carcass falls on any planting seed, which is to be sown, it is clean. But when any water is put on the seed, and any part of any such carcass falls on it, it is unclean to you. And when any of the beasts which are yours for food dies, he who touches its carcass becomes unclean until evening. And he who eats of its carcass has to wash his garments, and shall be unclean until evening. And he who picks up its carcass has to wash his garments, and shall be unclean until evening. And every swarming creature, the one that swarms on the earth, is an abomination. It is not eaten. Whatever crawls on its stomach, and whatever goes on all fours, and whatever has many feet among all swarming creatures, the one swarming on the earth, these you do not eat, for they are an abomination. Do not make yourselves abominable with any swarming creature, the one swarming, and do not make yourselves unclean with them, lest you be defiled by them. For I am YaHuWaH, your Elohim, and you shall set yourselves apart, and you shall be set apart, for I am set apart. And do not defile yourselves with any swarming creature, the one creeping on the earth. For I am YaHuWaH, who is bringing you up out of the land of Mitzrayim, to be your Elohim, and you shall be set apart, for I am set apart. This is the Torah of the beasts and the birds and every living being, the creeping creature in the waters, and of every being that swarms on the earth, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, and between the living creature that is eaten and the living creature that is not eaten. Chapter 6. Now David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David rose up and went with all the peoples who were with him from Baali Yahudah, to bring up from there the ark of Elohim that is called by the name of Yahuwah of hosts, who dwells between the cherubim. And they placed the ark of Elohim on a new wagon, and brought it from the house of Abinadab, which was on the hill. And Uzzah and Ahio, sons of Abinadab, were leading the new wagon. And they brought it from the house of Abinadab, which is on the hill, with the ark of Elohim. And Ahio was walking before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel were dancing before Yahuwah with all instruments of fir wood, and with lyres, and with harps, and with tambourines, and with sistrums, and with cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah reached out toward the ark of Elohim and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. And the wrath of Yahuwah burned against Uzzah, and Elohim struck him there for the fault. And he died there by the ark of Elohim. And David was displeased because Yahuwah had broken out against Uzzah. And he called the name of the place Peretz Uzzah until this day. And David was afraid of Yahuwah on that day. And he said, how shall the ark of Yahuwah come to me? And David would not move the ark of Yahuwah with him into the city of David, but David turned it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of Yahuwah remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 new moons. And Yahuwah blessed Obed-Edom and all his house. And it was reported to the sovereign David, saying, Yahuwah has blessed the house of Obed-Edom, and all that he has because of the ark of Elohim. David then went and brought up the ark of Elohim from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. And it came to be when those bearing the ark of YaHuWaH had gone 6 steps that they slaughtered bulls and fatted sheep. And David danced before YaHuWaH with all his might. And David was wearing a linen shoulder garment. Thus David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of YaHuWaH with shouting and with the voice of a shofar. And it came to be when the ark of YaHuWaH came into the city of David that Michal, daughter of Shaul, looked through the window and saw sovereign David leaping and dancing before YaHuWaH. And she despised him in her heart. So they brought the ark of YaHuWaH in and set it in its place in the midst of the tent that David had pitched for it. And David brought ascending offerings before YaHuWaH and peace offerings. And when David had finished bringing ascending offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of YaHuWaH of hosts. And he apportioned to all the people, to all the crowd of Israel, from man even to woman, to each one a loaf of bread and a measure and a cake of raisins. And all the people left each one to his house. And David returned to bless his household. And Michal, the daughter of Shaul, came out to meet David and said, "How esteemed was the sovereign of Israel today, uncovering himself today in the eyes of the female servants of his servants, as one of the foolish ones shamelessly uncovers himself." So David said to Michal, "Before YaHuWaH, who chose me instead of your father and all his house, commanded me to be ruler over the people of YaHuWaH, over Israel, so I danced before YaHuWaH. And I shall be even more slight than this, and shall be more humble in my own eyes. But as for the female servants of whom you have spoken, by them I am esteemed." And Michal, the daughter of Shaul, had no children until the day of her death. Chapter 7. And it came to be when the sovereign was dwelling in his house, and YaHuWaH had given him rest from all his enemies all around, that the sovereign said to Nathan the prophet, "See now, I am dwelling in a house of cedar, but the ark of Elohim dwells within curtains." And Nathan said to the sovereign, "Go, do all that is in your heart, for YaHuWaH is with you." And it came to be that night that the word of YaHuWaH came to Nathan, saying, "Go and say to my servant David, thus says YaHuWaH, would you build a house for me to dwell in? For I have not dwelt in a house since the time that I brought the children of Israel up from Mitzrayim, even to this day, but have moved about in a tent and in a dwelling place. Wherever I have walked with all the children of Israel, have I ever spoken a word to anyone from the tribes of Israel, whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, saying, why have you not built me a house of cedar? And now say to my servant David, thus says YaHuWaH of hosts, I took you from the pasture, from following the flock, to be ruler over my people, over Israel. And I have been with you wherever you have gone, and have cut off all your enemies from before you, and have made you a great name, like the name of the great ones who are on the earth. And I shall appoint a place for my people Israel, and shall plant them, and they shall dwell in a place of their own, and no longer be afraid. Neither shall the children of wickedness oppress them again as at first. Even from the day I commanded rulers over my people Israel, and have caused you to rest from all your enemies. And YaHuWaH has declared to you that he would make you a house. When your days are filled, and you rest with your fathers, I shall raise up your seed after you, who comes from your inward parts, and shall establish his reign. He does build a house for my name, and I shall establish the throne of his reign forever. I am to be his father, and he is my son. If he does perversely, I shall reprove him with the rod of men, and with the blows of the sons of men. But my loving commitment does not turn aside from him, as I turned it aside from Shaul, whom I removed from before you. And your house and your reign are to be steadfast forever before you, and your throne is established forever." According to all these words, and according to all this vision, so Nathan spoke to David.
Okay, so now we're going to read Matthew 3:11-17. I indeed immerse you in water unto repentance, but he who is coming after me is mightier than I, whose sandals I am not worthy to bear. He shall immerse you in the Ruach HaKodesh and fire. His winnowing fork is in his hand, and he shall thoroughly cleanse his threshing floor and gather his wheat into the storehouse. But the chaff he shall burn with unquenchable fire. Then Yahushua came from Galil to Yachanan at the Yarden to be immersed by him. But Yachanan was hindering him, saying, I need to be immersed by you, and you come to me. But Yahushua answering said to him, Permit it now, for thus it is fitting for us to fill all righteousness. Then he permitted him. And having been immersed, Yahushua went up immediately from the water, and see, the heavens were opened, and he saw the Ruach of Elohim descending like a dove and coming upon him. And see, a voice out of the heavens saying, This is my son, the beloved, in whom I did delight. Okay, now we're going to go to Hebrews 7, and we'll go ahead and let the recording go from there. Pull over here. Hebrews. Here we are. Oops.
The book?
The book of Hebrews. And chapter 7. Let me pull this one up over here real quick. I need to get my reading glasses on soon here.
Chapter 7. For this Melchizedek, sovereign of Shalem, priest of the Most High Elohim, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the sovereigns and blessed him, to whom also Abraham gave a tenth part of all, his name being translated indeed first, sovereign of righteousness, and then also sovereign of Shalom, that is, sovereign of peace, without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but having been made like the Son of Elohim, remains a priest for all time. Now see how great this one was, to whom even the ancestor Abraham gave a tenth of the choicest booty. And truly, those who are of the sons of Levi, who received the priesthood, have a command to receive tithes from the people according to the Torah, that is, from their brothers, though they have come from the loins of Abraham. However, the one whose genealogy is not derived from them received tithes from Abraham, and blessed the one who held the promises. And it is beyond all dispute that the lesser is blessed by the better. And here it is men who die that receive tithes. But there it is, someone of whom it is witnessed that he lives. And one might say that through Abraham, even Levi, who received tithes, gave tithes. For he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. Truly then, if perfection were through Levitical priesthood, for under it the people were given the Torah, why was there still need for another priest to arise according to the order of Melchizedek, and not be called according to the order of Aharon? For the priesthood being changed, of necessity there takes place a change of law also. For he of whom this is said belongs to another tribe, from which no one had attended at the slaughter place. For it is perfectly clear that our master arose from Yehuda, a tribe about which Moshe never spoke of concerning priesthood. And this is clearer still, if another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become, not according to the Torah, a fleshly command, but according to the power of an endless life. For he does witness, You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. For there is indeed a setting aside of the former command, because of its weakness and unprofitableness. For the Torah perfected not, but the bringing in of a better expectation through which we draw near to Elohim, and it was without an oath. For they indeed became priests without an oath, but he became priest with an oath by him who said to him, Yahuwah has sworn and shall not regret. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. By as much as this, Yeshua has become a guarantor of a better covenant. And indeed, those that became priests were many, because they were prevented by death from continuing. But he, because he remains forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. Therefore, he is able to save completely those who draw near to Elohim through him, ever living to make intercession for them. For it was fitting that we should have such a high priest, kind, innocent, undefiled, having been separated from sinners and exalted above the heavens, who does not need, as those high priests, to go up slaughter offerings day by day, first for his own sins and then for those of the people. For this he did once for all, when he offered up himself. For the Torah appoints as high priests men who have weakness, but the word of the oath which came after the Torah appoints the Son, having been perfected forever. Chapter 8. Now the summary of what we are saying is, we have such a high priest, who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in the heavens, and who serves in the set-apart place, and of the true tent, which Yahuwah set up, and not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughters. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. For indeed, if he were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer the gifts according to the Torah, who serve a copy and shadow of the heavenly, as Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent. For he said, See that you make all according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. For if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, See, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah a renewed covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them, says Yahuwah. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts. And I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor, and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, because they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them. Because I shall forgive their unrighteousness and their sins, and their lawlessness I shall no longer remember. By saying renewed, he has made the first old. What becomes old and growing aged is near disappearing.
Okay, we're going to stop there.
Chap-
All right. Let's go over to Leviticus 9 now. Back and discuss it. Look up what we want to look up on it. However, who is leading us. So again, with the Leviticus, we're talking about, obviously we're talking about the called ones, because that's the name of the book, Wayikra, and he called, but this is also the priesthood. Okay. Let's grab our stones to knock. Grab some footnotes from there. On Leviticus 9. I'll just read the beginning here of Leviticus. What they have a little write-up on some of the major books here at the beginning. It says, in the lexicon of the Talmudic sages, the book of Leviticus is called Torahs Kohanim, or the Torah of the priest. because most of the book deals with the laws of the temple service and other laws relating to the priest and their responsibilities. I am going to find my reading glasses here, right behind my computer. These letters are little. There we go. The opening chapters of the book deal almost exclusively with animal korbanos, a word that is commonly translated as either sacrifices or offerings. But the truth is that the English language does not have a word that accurately expresses the concept of a korban. The word sacrifice implies that the person bringing it is expected to deprive himself of something valuable. But Elohim finds no joy, and this is a week we're talking about joy, it's Sukkot week. Elohim finds no joy in his children's anguish or deprivation. It's just such an important sentence there. He finds no joy in our anguish or deprivation. Offering is more positive and closer to the mark for this word korban. Indeed, we use it in our translation, but it too falls far short of the Hebrew korban. So there's no English word that correctly gets what this word means. Does Elohim require our gifts to appease him or assuage his anger? And if he did, of what significance is a bull or lamb to him? If you have acted righteously, what have you given him? Job 35:7 says. Elohim does not become enriched by man's largesse. The root of the word korban, which is kuf resh bet, to come near. The person bringing an offering comes closer to Elohim. He elevates his level of spirituality. That is the true meaning of the word and the significance of the act, to come near. For modern man, who has been weaned on the delusion that anything not measurable or replicable is unworthy of serious consideration, and who, after all, is the product of over 19 centuries without the temple, the notion of animal offerings seems bizarre to us today, even primitive. However, let us imagine ourselves among our ancestors when the first Kohanim, the priest, brought their first offerings in their newly built tabernacle. There was a palpable recognition of Elohim's esteem resting upon their handiwork and a miraculous heavenly fire descending to consume the offerings. Could they have doubted the efficacy of the service? Would we have felt otherwise if we had been there too? The commentators offer various rationale and meta-rationale explanations for the offerings. Without attempting to more than barely scratch the surface, we briefly summarize one thought. Wherever the Torah speaks of the offerings, it uses the four-letter name of Elohim that signifies his mercy. This is so important. Okay, so let's say that again. Wherever the Torah speaks of the offerings or the come nears, it uses the four-letter name of Elohim, YaHuWaH, that signifies his mercy. The offerings are the means he gives us to rejuvenate ourselves, to provide us a means to bring elevation and purity into our lives. So interesting, because in this day and age, people talk about ascending, right? Oh, the ascension's going to happen. But this is saying the offerings or the come nears are the means he gives us to rejuvenate ourselves, to provide us a means to bring elevation and purity into our lives. It is when man serves Elohim this way that he finds the offering or the come near to be a satisfying aroma, meaning, as the sages explain, that Elohim says, as it were, I have commanded and my will has been done. Okay, so now we'll go over to Leviticus 9 and look at their footnotes on this chapter. The next three chapters. Okay, so 9:4. This one says, and a bull and a ram as peace offerings to slaughter before YaHuWaH. And remember, they're telling us right here, Judah is telling us that this four-letter name of YaHuWaH has to do with mercy. Okay. And so 9:4 here. Their offerings would bring about the descent of a heavenly fire, which represented Elohim's appearance among the people. I also thought it was interesting that we read today that the ark was known by the name of YaHuWaH. I was like, wow, I hadn't seen that before. Okay, so there's a footnote at 9:22 to 24. And Aharon then lifted up his hand toward the people and baruched them, and came down from making the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings. And Moshe and Aharon went into the tent of meeting and came out and baruched the people. And the esteem of Yahuwah appeared to all the people. That's amazing, so beautiful. And fire came out from before Yahuwah and consumed the burnt offering and the fat on the altar. And all the people saw and cried aloud and fell on their faces. So the footnote says, having completed his first day of sacrificial service, Aharon joyously baruched the people for the first time. Aharon had an overpowering desire to baruch the people, for such is the generous and loving nature of Aharon and his descendants. In reward, Elohim gave the Kohanim the eternal commandment of conferring the priestly blessing upon the, and we'll replace the word Jewish with Hebrew people, the 12 tribes people. Okay. And then we're going to go on to chapter 10 and its footnotes. It says verses 1-7, just as the joy of the inauguration, this is kind of an important word in our 21st century, with at least with the United States presidents. We have inauguration. I assume there's something in other countries for their presidents or prime ministers. Just as the joy of the inauguration ritual reached its peak, tragedy struck. Aharon's two oldest sons performed an unauthorized incense service and lost their lives. The behavior of Moshe and Aharon in the face of this grievous loss gave further testimony to their own greatness and brought about a new sanctification of Elohim's name. Okay. So there's something about and before all the people let me be esteemed. Interesting, they have the word come near here. I wonder what that word is. 3 interlinear 10:3. Yeah, it's very close to this korban word. Karob says near. So that's where korban comes from. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, I'm in Leviticus 10. Before all the people let me be esteemed. Though by those who come near me, let me be kadosh. Okay. Verse 5 there. So they came near and took them by their long shirts out of the camp. It says the heavenly fire entered their nostrils and burned their souls, as it were, but did not affect their bodies or clothing. So that is a Jewish note in their Sanhedrin. It says true a Jew. A Hebrew should try to accept Elohim's justice with belief that it is for the best, as Aharon did, but should mourn over the misfortunes of a fellow Hebrew. Okay. And then 10:16, Darosh. 10:16. And Moshe diligently looked, so here's the word, diligently looked for the goat of the sin offering and saw it was burned up, and he was wroth with Eleazar and Ithamar, the sons of Aharon, who were left. Okay, so this is where he's asking them why had they not eaten the sin offering, and he's like, and they're like, or Aharon says, today they have brought their sin offering and their burnt offering before Yahuwah, and matters like these have come to me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would it have been right in the eyes of Yahuwah? And so Moshe decides that's a taupe thing. So it says, Darosh, inquired insistently, literally inquire, he inquired. This is the exact halfway mark of the words of the Torah. Oh, this is interesting. So these two words, Darosh, let me show you guys in the Hebrew. Interlinear.
So this is where everything meets.
This is the halfway mark. This
Okay.
Darosh. Right here.
Forward and backwards. Hallelujah.
Yeah, right here. So it's now that I can see the Darosh, Darish. No, it's saying Darash. Darosh. So right here is the halfway mark in the Torah. So it's
they say
translated.
that.
Go ahead, Tessa.
So what I have heard is that when they start at the beginning of Bereshit and they go to there, it spells Torah, and then when you go to the end of the Torah, which is Deuteronomy, and you go back to this point, it spells Torah every 50th Hebrew word.
Mm-hmm.
And in Leviticus, it's every 7th letter that spells YaHuWaH.
Every 7th letter in this book.
And when you think about Jacob Ramsell with that, that's what got me interested in it. Was just like, wow, when Chuck Missler years ago spoke about that, it was just amazing. Nothing is just happenstance, if you know what I mean. Nothing.
Yeah. And this is so interesting that there's not just a mid section here, but it's the same word on both sides of the middle.
Yes.
To inquiring, he made inquiry. You can see it's the same word twice. So this says to resort, seek.
So what do we inquire about?
To tread or frequent. Spending some time here. Usually to follow, for pursuit or search. It's like a buried treasure, right? Somebody would be on a buried treasure like white on rice. This would be like to pursue the word of YaHuWaH like that. To worship, specifically to worship. To seek or ask, to worship, to follow. I mean, this is a pursuit. It's that kind of search.
Seek and you will find.
Yeah. Diligence. Also the interesting, I believe that they're at some point they're translating it to necromancer. So you could imagine someone going to a seance and trying to search for answers from a dead relative or something. That would be the same kind of a pursuit.
Which we are warned not to do.
Not to do that. Yeah, we're to pursue YaHuWaH's word, YaHuWaH and his word. But they have used it there. Yeah. You can imagine that when we've seen this kind of thing in silly movies or something, it's usually somebody trying to get, information from somebody on the other side. But there's that kind of pursuit for information. Or
that's exactly why what Saul did.
Yes, exactly.
And YaHuWaH was not pleased with him for doing that.
Not. Samuel wasn't pleased either. Let's see what the first use of that. Surely I will require your lifeblood. That's interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. ISR. Do not, let's see, every moving creature that lives is food for you. I've given you all as I gave the green plants, but do not eat flesh with its life, its blood, but only your blood for your lives I require. So there's the word.
Yeah, as I was saying to Sister Leah the other day.
Yeah.
when it comes to the blood, why aren't we to, not that I'm into blood at all, but why is that? Because life is in the blood, the soul is in there. And if they say that it stays there, that also comes into you.
Yeah. I think it is interesting that even though we're seeing resort and seek, the first use of it, it's require. It's something that's, it's even, it's very adamant. It's a very adamant searching and seeking. It's like no, I've got to have it kind of thing. It's a pursuit to that level. That is
Wonderful.
super being acted upon. All right, let's go back. So that's how we got here is we were talking about this midpoint here of the Torah. Okay. And then we're going to go to, and then again, they have it translated here to inquired insistently, or literally inquire, he inquired. We could even say required, which gives us an idea of having an association between the word inquire and require. That's sort of interesting as well. So let's go to the footnote on chapter 11. They're going to do the whole chapter first. Let's get over here. One click back will get me where I need to be. Yep. Leviticus 11. And so the first footnote is for the whole chapter. And of course, this is the food laws. At the end of this chapter, the Torah stresses the reason for kashrut very clearly. By observing these laws, the Hebrew pulls himself up the ladder of kadoshness. By ignoring them, he contaminates himself and builds a barrier that blocks out his comprehension of kadoshness. Wow, I have never heard that before. Let's read it
Can you
again.
explain it?
Well, let's read it again. Let's try to go through it a little bit. By observing these food laws, the Hebrew pulls himself up the ladder of kadoshness. No, I can't explain it. By ignoring them, he contaminates himself and builds a barrier that blocks out his comprehension of kadoshness. So it has to do with obviously obedience, but there may be more to it than just blind obedience. Like he talked in here about the insects you can eat are the ones that have a joint at the foot so that they leap upon the earth. I thought that was so interesting. They're almost flying. Some of these insects do fly. They have flying wings and stuff. But it talked about they have joints at their feet, like at their ankles.
All that I found that when I looked at the animals that are with it, they don't eat other animals. It's leaf eaters.
Mm-hmm.
That was my understanding of it, but
yeah, I think that for the most part that is true. But if you think that we can eat chicken, I have heard that chicken will eat mice.
yes.
Yeah. So anyway, the footnote goes on, just as someone, well, there is another thing, Tesla, and I'll tell you, is that I think there is something about, obviously there's this word chewing the cud, right? They chew
Yep.
the cud and they have a split hoof as well. But this word for chewing the cud is like the word for alot, the songs of ascension. So the food is ascending from one stomach to the next. And I'll just pick this verse, even though it's got the pig in it. But it's talking because they don't have a hoof divided, but it's talking about chewing the cud. Let's see, maybe I can find one. Whatever has a split. Here we go. It's in verse 3. So we can look in 3, interlinear.
Well, the camel chews the cud and have a split hoof, doesn't it? But it's unclean.
I don't think it has a split hoof.
Oh, okay.
I think it mentioned that one. Yeah. So that one does chew the cud. So here it is, a lot. Here, ayin lamed ta. So this chewing word, oh, come on, open it up. There we go. To go up, ascend. So we have the songs of ascension. And then we have this footnote here about the Hebrew pulls himself up the ladder of kadoshness. So there's an ascension concept here. And in this sense, it's the food that is ascending from one stomach to the next in their chewing. And obviously we have that phrase in our English language about chewing the cud. We need to chew the cud. You need to think about that. You need to process that. All right, it's moving very slowly up the road here. Let's go, go, go. Look at all the words on the right, all the different uses of this word or occurrences of it. Okay, so a primitive root to ascend. So I think this goes very well with this Jewish footnote here. Intransitively be high or actively mount, used in a great variety of senses, primary and secondary, literal and figurative, as follow: arise up, cause to ascend up. At once, it's also break, as in break the day, break up, bring up, cause to burn, carry up, cast up. So it goes on and on. There's increase, lay or leap. Here's a word, levy. Interesting word. Considering the tribe of Louis, who are called Levites. Lift self up, light, make up. Begin to spring up, stir up, take away, take up. Shoot forth, raise, recover, restore. Here's some great words right here. Make to rise up. Also says scale, like scale a wall, I guess. So this is just such an interesting word in the Hebrew, which we don't get in the English. And it's talking about chewing the cud, but maybe there's a little bit more to it than that. Maybe more to it. Specific animals
So
that
that
we can eat.
was 1625.
What, Tessa?
That was 1625. The Strong's on that.
Let's go back. Uh, 5927 Ma'alot. So the songs of ascension are Psalms 120 to 134. There are 15 of them, and they're called Shir HaMa'alot. So they're the songs of ascension. Song of Ascension is, each one is called a Song of Ascension. There's a beautiful, I'll try to put this in Discord later. It's in a different language. It's not Hebrew. I think it's like I think they have Hebrew words, but it's a Spanish transliteration. I think that's what it is. I could be wrong on that, but I'll try to find it and put it in. And they go through the songs of ascension, and every time they get to a new psalm of the 15, it's like the music takes on a like a new scale, or it moves up, it elevates, each one elevates up, and it's just beautiful. There's a long time I used to listen to it when I went to sleep and just loved it. So I'll share that with you guys later. Right. Let's go back to our footnotes here, if I can get back to Leviticus 11. So we're going to get to verse, let's see if I finished that footnote. I think I did. Let me see. Just as someone who is constantly exposed to loud, oh no, I didn't finish reading it. Just as someone who is constantly exposed to loud music and harsh noise slowly and imperceptibly loses his ability to hear fine sounds and detect subtle modulations That's what I was talking about, modulations in those songs of ascent. So too, consumption of non-kosher food deadens a Hebrew's spiritual capacities and lessens his opportunity to become kadosh. And worst of all, it renders him incapable of even perceiving his loss. For this reason, Rama cautions that even small children should be prevented from eating forbidden foods. Okay, so there's a reason behind it. Yahuwah's given us the command. There's a reason behind it, is what they're getting at. It taints our ability to become kadosh, and we're not even aware of it, and we just keep slicing away at our ability to perceive, being tender to perceive how to become kadosh. So 11:4. It says, with regard to food, the term tuma means that it is forbidden for consumption. So forbidden for consumption, verse 4. Let's go look at that word, because I don't know if it's a ta or a tet from this note. 11:4. Forbidden for consumption. Like, most people don't have any problem not eating hippopotamus meat, right? And it's come into the news lately about eating ducks and cats. There's a reason we're not supposed to eat them. With regard to food, the term tuma means that it is forbidden for consumption. 11:4. Tuma. Not the shell you eat.
There's a big thing over here at the moment. Sorry, there's a camel milk. Fresh
Camel milk.
camel milk. And I thought, oh, okay, I didn't think that a lot of things are. Yeah, camel milk.
Tamay. So
To
this is,
feed your babies if they're lactose intolerant.
I've heard goat milk is really great. In fact, I met a woman who was here vacationing, and she wasn't able to breastfeed, but she gave her baby cow's milk from the get-go and did just fine. Just fine. Okay, so from Tamay, it says
I was raised on
Yeah.
goat's milk.
on goat's milk. Yeah,
I was, yes.
yeah. Well, in Hawaii, there's lots of goats. And of course we have cows here. We're not milking our goats. So they're saying that tamay means, it says the term tuma means that it is forbidden for consumption. So that's really a strong word, as opposed to where we're seeing here, be or become unclean. They're saying forbidden for consumption. Comes across a little bit stronger. A primitive root to be foul, especially in I think they mean ceremonial, or moral sense, contaminated. So that's a pretty strong word, contaminated. Defile self, pollute self, make self, pronounce unclean, and utterly. I still think this is a stronger meaning here. Forbidden for consumption. Wonder what Klein says. Let's look. It's on the other side here. I'll get the one that's taped. These are in ill repair, the way the publisher did them. Tamay. Tom. Oh, interesting. I think it's spelled with an olive on the end. Yeah, it's spelled with an olive on the end. Tom olive. Here we go. It says to be or become unclean. He polluted, defiled, was unclean, became unclean. He defiled himself. He became unclean. Okay, unclean, defiled, impure, forbidden for eating. So Klein's got that meaning of it. Forbidden for eating. And then tet mem, it was tet mem hey, I don't remember tet mem aleph. I don't remember if I said tet or ta, but I meant tet. Tet mem hey means to be stopped up, be stupid. Related to tet mem mem or aleph tet mem, but very close spelling. To be stopped up, be stupid. I would think that there's a relationship there. Tamum is stupid and also massive. And then tamun, tet mem wa noon, is hidden and concealed. Okay. Let's go on. The next footnote is on verse 9. Is this helpful for you guys to be going through and looking at some of this on the food laws? The overall here?
It is for me.
Yeah.
It is.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we understand the blood
Yeah.
and we understand the cut. What does the hoof reference do? Like, what does that signify?
I don't know. We should
Did you
look at-
guys
Yeah, we didn't talk about the hoof at all, and they haven't talked about it in these footnotes either. It's just that these are the animals that we can eat, and these are the ones we cannot eat.
I've
And-
always wondered that though.
Yeah.
You know, like I've heard it mentioned many, many years, and it's like, wonder what that has significance for.
Yeah, we could look in the commentary too and see if they have some ideas. So far, we haven't heard anything from the Stones Tanakh on their understanding of it. Just that when we obey Yahuwah, we see, how do they say it again? By observing these laws, the Hebrew pulls himself up the ladder of kadoshness. By ignoring them, he contaminates himself and builds a barrier that blocks out his comprehension of kadoshness. Okay. 9. Verse 9. The scales that are indicative of a kosher fish. So this is a fish as opposed to the hooves kind of thing, but maybe we'll get some understanding here. The scales that are indicative of a kosher fish are only those that can be scraped off easily with a knife. This includes fish whose scales are not clearly defined, such as shellfish and amphibians. Okay, so I don't know what to do with that footnote. That doesn't make any kosher sense to me. Okay.
That sounds like any type of fish, but if it's like lobster or crab or oysters, or when
Yeah.
it comes to amphibians, like frogs that have thick skin, or
Yeah. And sure, okay,
lizards.
yeah.
And
I think I was just
Yeah.
reading it wrong. I thought they were giving themselves permission. This
no, it was saying accept that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, shellfish, amphibians, they're off. They are not on the list of foods we can eat.
I used to be a crabaholic too, eh?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are certain things I cannot go with my family to eat because they love the crab and shrimp and lobster. And I used to eat it too. I used to enjoy it, but now I don't, because Yahuwah says don't eat it. And we have to remember that Jacob's brother lost his olive tah. He lost his place as the firstborn. He lost his, what was it? It's Barak is the quote blessing, and then the it's the firstborn blessing and the firstborn, what is it? The birthright. But they're spelled very much alike. Those two words, it's like they're the same 3 letters. I think it might be Barak and Bakar. I think that might be it. But he lost them when he traded in his birthright for the lentil stew. So we don't want to be that one. We don't want to be that one. I once heard somebody say, you know, if the book of Revelation gets here, I want to go down with a pork sandwich in my mouth. No. We do not want to be about our stomachs. We want to be about what YaHuWaH wants us to be about, what his calling is. We don't want to.
Wow, somebody actually said that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, when you think about it, it's just it all gets back to Shema. You hear and you do.
Yeah.
You either obey all the commands or you don't.
Yes.
There's no tweaking it. That's my
exactly.
I
And
want to be called a friend, and as Abraham was, and if Father says you don't, you don't. If he says you do, you do.
Yeah, we don't want to be disqualified for something stupid like that.
Right.
Well, if you
Some
look at
are-
Isaiah 66, this has always been something that I've had my son read, because I will hear Christians say, "Oh, it's just it's not a salvation issue. If you do, you do. You don't, you don't." Paul said, "We're no closer if we do eat, and the food does not commend us toward godliness." And they use that as the excuse, plus other things about, you know, the addition to the scriptures that says, "By this he declared all meats clean," which is in italics in Matthew when it's talking about the hand washing. And they think it means that you can eat whatever meat you want. But when you go to Isaiah 66:17, it's crystal clear that the destruction that will befall these people is because they're eating swine's flesh. It spells it out very specifically. And so if you think it's okay to continue to do that, and it doesn't matter, get ready for the sword, and many will be the slain of the Lord in that day, is what Isaiah 66 says. So it's very much, to me, when I read that, it is a salvation issue, because you're either alive or you're dead.
I'm glad you brought that up, Scarlett. It's right written. It's written.
It is written.
It is written.
So it's not a, well, you can do it. You can if you want. It's okay. Nope. It's right there's the fate of those who do it. Right there. Isaiah 66:17. Read it.
Yep. Okay, let's get through, because he's got quite a few footnotes here on this chapter. Or they do. The Torah, this is footnotes 13 through 19. The Torah names the 20 non-kosher species of birds, but as a result of the various exiles and dispersions, the language of the Torah fell into relative disuse, and the exact identities of the non-kosher birds became doubtful. Interesting. Therefore, the Shulchan Aruch rules that it is forbidden to eat any species of bird unless there is a well-established tradition that it is kosher. We follow the lead of Rabbi Hirsch in transliterating the names, but the commentary offers possible translations. So 1113, most commentators agree that the nesher is the eagle or bald eagle. The Peres is identified as the bearded vulture. Verse 14, according to Rabbi Hoffman's translation of Ar Saadia, the da is the kite. The Ralbag translates it as a species of vulture. The Orev in verse 15, the Orev is generally assumed to be the raven, which is kind of interesting because a couple of the letters are represented there, the resh and the bet for raven. The Bas Ha'ayana is identified as the ostrich in verse 16. The Netz is identified as the sparrow hawk. Verse 17, both the Kos and the Yanshuf are birds which howl at night, and have cheeks that are similar to those of humans, i.e. the owl and the great horned owl. According to Ralbog, Kos is the falcon. The shalak is a bird that draws fish from the water, apparently a pelican, heron, or cormorant. The Tinshemis is identified as the bat or the owl in verse 18. Verse 19, the Hasidah is called by that name because it displays kindness, chesed, by sharing food with others of its species. It is, however, not kosher because it directs its kindness exclusively towards its fellows, but will not help other species. So this is a very interesting footnote. Let's read it again. The Hasidah is called by that name because it displays kindness, chesed, by sharing food with others of its species. It is, however, not kosher. Why is it not kosher? Because it directs its kindness exclusively towards its fellows, but will not help other species. So this footnote is suggesting that the reason the animal, this bird, is not kosher is because something the animal does. Its kindness is exclusively towards its fellows, but will not help other species. The anafa is identified as the heron. Rashi identifies the Dukifos as the wild hen whose comb is doubled over. Rashi here identifies it as the hoopoe. The Atalef is identified as the bat. And in verse 24 to 27, we'll pull those up on the screen here. The rest of the chapter discusses the transmission of contamination, which is, we just looked this word up, tet mem aleph, but this one's tet mem aleph hey, and it means contamination. So when we had the other footnote, it told us the word means forbidden for consumption. And now by adding just a hey on the end, we now have contamination. So the rest of the chapter is about the transmission of contamination. In verses 29 to 31 as a footnote, this passage lists the 8 small animals whose carcasses convey their contamination to people and objects. So this, we hear a lot today about animal transmission to humans, right? So that's what they're talking about here. Their carcasses convey their contamination to people and objects. Verse 29 has a footnote. According to Rashi and others, the choled is identified as a weasel, and Ar Saadia identifies it as a mole. It is generally agreed that the akbar is a mouse, and it may include similar rodents. Rashi notes that the saw resembles a frog, thus it is presumably a toad. Verse 30 has a footnote. We're still there. The Anaka is identified as the hedgehog or porcupine. According to Radak, it is a viper, which is very different than a hedgehog or a porcupine. According to Ar Saadia, the koak is a species of lizard. Rashi identifies the lita as the lizard. The chomet is identified as the snail or the chameleon. Okay, this be escargot kind of thing, or the chameleon. The Tinshemis is not the bird of the same name in verse 18. According to Rashi, it is a mole. According to Ar Saadia, a type of lizard. Verses 32 to 38. The Torah now turns to objects and how they receive contamination through coming in contact with any of the carcasses mentioned above. And it says the Torah now turns to Tuma that emanates from human beings. So Tuma, again, it defined it as forbidden for consumption. And then that's as far as we're going to go in the Torah. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about in the Torah reading today? Leah had asked about the hooves. Go check that out. I'm just going to look at the commentaries of let's reload this page. All right. Split hoof completely divided. So that's verse 3. Commentary verse 3. We could also get some idea just by looking at what are the animals that have a divided hoof and chew the cud? How are they different from the animals that either one or the other? Seems like the page is going a little slow here. So it says it's better to say whatsoever is cloven-footed and entirely separates the hooves. The first rule laid down by which the clean quadruped is to be distinguished is that the hooves must be completely cloven or divided above as well as below, or as the parallel passage in Deuteronomy 14:6 says, has it and cleaveth the cleft into two claws. Such is the case in the foot of the ox, the sheep, and the goat, where the hoof is wholly divided below and much as above. The foot of the dog, the cat, and the lion, though exhibiting a division into several distinct toes or claws, is contrary to the regulation here laid down, inasmuch as the division is simply on the upper side, the lower side being united by a membrane, and hence the hoof is not entirely separated. Interesting that it says it's united by a membrane. So we're going to look for the cloven foot part. So this one, by the way, says cheweth the cud. Every quadruped which has no upper teeth is known to be ruminant, and when it is also cloven footed, it is clean. So it also has no upper teeth. Obviously, for instance, humans have upper teeth. We also do not have a cloven foot, but we have separated toes. Whatsoever parteth the hoof, that is, divides it into two parts only, or is cloven footed, as is here expressed, these qualities are not assigned as reasons why such animals are proper for food, but merely as marks whereby to distinguish them, so such that YaHuWaH marked them for us. In some animals, the hoofs are solid and not divided at all, as horses, asses, and mules. In others, they are divided into several parts like toes, as in lions, wolves, dogs. In the third sort, they are cloven or divided into two parts, as oxen, deer, sheep, and goats. These last are of two kinds, for in some the hoof is divided, but not cloven quite through, as the camel. In others, it is both parted and cloven, which are those allowed by this law to be clean creatures. Another thing maybe possible, Leah, is a tracker or hunters. Well, what would be the point of going to hunt an animal that, you see their tracks on the ground, but you can tell that it's not a kosher animal? So that would give a hunter idea of what he's tracking, what he's trying to catch to eat. That might be a really big point. Let's see, this says, such creatures as chew the cud are reckoned more wholesome because they grind and digest what they eat better, and consequently yield a lighter and more nutritious food than others. Under the prohibition of eating beasts which do not answer this description, all beasts of prey and those which eat flesh are included, whose juices, Dr. James observes, are highly alkalescent and injurious to health. All animals of the horse and ass kind are here also prohibited, and it is well known that the flesh of those is difficult to be digested, and that the juices are rank and unwholesome.
When you think about it, Darla, that the way that I'm looking at it is you've got your clean and your unclean fleshes that are out there.
Yeah.
If it's in the flesh, it's also in the spiritual. So if you're eating unclean flesh, are you unclean? If you're eating clean flesh, are you clean spiritually?
Yeah. Matthew Henry, let's
It's
read
just what,
yeah, go ahead,
oh,
Tessa.
yes. Please. No, just Matthew Henry would have something in there, wouldn't he?
Yeah, let's see what he's got to say. What animals were clean? Interesting, he's using the word were, of course. Were clean and unclean. These laws seem to have been intended. One as a test of the people's obedience. So that's what Tessa was saying straight up. Either we obey or we don't. As a test of the people's obedience, as Adam was forbidden to eat of the tree of knowledge, and to teach them self-denial and the government of their appetites. Two, to keep the Israelites distinct from other nations. Many also of these forbidden animals were objects of superstition and idolatry to the heathen. Three, the people were taught to make distinctions between the kadosh and the unkadosh in their companions and intimate connections. So this is interesting. Let's read again. The people were taught to make distinctions between the kadosh and unkadosh in their companions and intimate connections. That is a loaded sentence right there. The law forbade, number 4, not only the eating of the unclean beasts, but the touching of them. Those who would be kept from any sin must be careful to avoid all temptations to it or coming near it. There's that word "come near" again. So I think this is a theme for today, to come near. The exceptions are very minute, and all were designed to call forth constant care and exactness in their obedience, and to teach us to obey. Whilst we enjoy our Christian liberty, he says, and are free from such burdensome observances. Okay, so this is a man in the 1800s says that it's burdensome to keep the word of YaHuWaH, the commands to eat kosher food. We must be careful not to abuse our liberty. So I don't know how you don't abuse your liberty and also disobey, or it's a bit of a paradox.
That might have been a later type in as well.
Could be. Or it just could be his understanding, because obviously none of us had this understanding before 2009. For YaHuWaH has
So
redeemed. Sorry, Tessa?
So true.
Yeah. It says, for YaHuWaH has redeemed and called his people that they may be kadosh, even as he is kadosh. We must come out and be separate from the world. Yes, this is coming out and being separate from the world. We must leave the company of the unrighteous and all needless connections with those who are dead in sin. Dead in sin. He went a little further than the stones to knock and said, these people are dead in sin. We must be zealous of Tob works, devoted followers of Elohim and companions of his people. Okay. All right. So does that, I think the whole idea of tracking these animals is also, I remember when my young sons were in Boy Scouts and they would teach them what animal prints there were. And, well, this is the sheep, and this is the tiger, lion, whatever they had up in that area in Utah. This is the bear, right? Well, you don't need to go hunting for a bear. He's not kosher. Whatsoever parteth the hoof and is cloven hooded should rather be translated whatsoever parteth the hoof and completely divides it. So that's what they're saying. This is how you should translate that. The camel parts, but does not wholly divide the hoof, as there is ball at the back of the foot of the nature of a heel. Okay.
So you can't eat bear either?
No.
Oh.
Can't eat bear. It's not kosher. Doesn't have a divided
Deer
foot.
is okay though, right?
Deer is okay.
I'm just wondering what we're going to survive on here. I was really surprised about rabbit, actually, because we had like 1 million rabbits running around here. But then when I heard rabbits were not kosher, I was like, oh, really?
Yeah. I guess bear is a food up there too, huh?
Not necessarily a food, but people hunt it up here.
Uh-huh.
Um,
For the coat
not,
or for the meat?
well, I guess they do both. The people that do go
Mhm,
hunt
yeah.
bear. Most of the people here that I know hunt deer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's actually one of the cottages that I clean. The guy that does maintenance told me that he hunts bear with a crossbow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
So I didn't ask him what he does with it, but I guess there's bear jerky and stuff that they do with it. What do they do with bear, honey? Rump roast.
uh,
So
yeah.
they do eat it. I can't imagine. It's just like over here though. We've got the crocodile and it's not kosher.
No, because it's got the
Yeah.
thick skin. Yeah.
Yeah. I've tasted it. It has the texture of chicken.
Rubber.
It tastes like
Oh,
chicken
yeah.
texture. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
like rabbit too, right? Like rabbit can pass for chicken kind of too.
I haven't tasted rabbit, but I remember as a child used to be able to go into the butchers and you'd see all these rabbits hanging up. And
Mm,
it was something that was eaten back in the 60s, 70s, So
yeah.
And look at all these people in the States now that are eating like cats and dogs and everything, eh?
Yeah.
mm,
They're definitely not living Torah.
Yeah. Wow.
and I find it amazing also that these things can defile us, but if you come near something that's kadosh, it doesn't make you kadosh. Do you know what I mean? You have to practice a lot to be kadosh, to be set apart
Yeah.
and clean, but it doesn't take much
And
to
be in
be
covenant. Yeah.
defiled by
Yeah.
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 Kind of reminds me of like if you clean your house, you have to put a lot of work in it to clean it. But it doesn't take much to, defile it. Doesn't take much.
Yep.
What do you say? A little leaven's the whole lump. Yeah.
That gave it a new meaning.
Yeah.
It's true.
All right, so we're gonna go on to 2 Samuel 6, and I'm gonna see what I think we did pretty great with the Stone Tanakh here. I'm gonna see what footnotes we find there.
I like that comic Christy just put up when in Scouts we learned the signs of the feet in the mud and when coming across a bear or dangerous animals to avoid them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have a footnote here. Yeah, I think that may be one of the reasons Yahuwah may have given us the sign in the feet is so we know if what we're tracking. So we have here a footnote in verse 2. It says literally the plain of Judah or plain of Judah, another name for Kiriath Yearim, where the ark had been located since its return by the Philistines. And then verse 7, and the wrath of Yahuwah burned against Uzziah. Let's see if we can make it a little bit bigger. Okay, verse 7, it says, the sages explain that Uzzah, not Uzziah, Uzzah, committed a gross error. The ark was so kadosh that its customary bearers, the Luim, never felt its great weight. They were borne by it. That's interesting. How then could Uzzah think it was in danger of falling to the ground? DeWitt, on the other hand, was upset with himself for having failed to take the necessary precautions to avoid such a mishap. So I think what they're making a point about here is that the ark was very heavy. These men could not have carried it. It was so heavy. It would have been quite the burden to carry it. But it's saying that the ark bore the men. That's pretty profound right there. And I've also heard before, hey, this was gold. It was a conductor of electricity. He touched it and he got shocked. But this scripture was saying that it was Yahuwah who broke out against Uzzah. Yeah,
Were
the
they
wrath of
priests?
Yahuwah burned
they-
against him. Sorry, Tessa.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
Were they Levites that were carrying? Were they from the priestly line? I wonder.
Well, it says that they were. It says the ark was so kadosh that its customary bearers, the Luim, never felt its great weight. They were borne by it. So let's see if we go back and look and see who was carrying it. They brought it from the house of Abinadab. They placed the ark of Elohim on a new wagon. So it's on a wagon. It's on a wagon. It's not being carried by men. Brought it from the
Okay.
house of Abinadab, which was on the hill, and Uzzah and Achio, sons of Abinadab, were leading the new wagon. So it's on a wagon.
So I wonder if those two sons were from the tribe still,
Yeah.
because I thought it was the tribe of Levi that because they were from the priestly line, they were the only ones to have anything to do.
Yeah. Well, we
With
could
the
go and
ark.
look at verse 3 and see who this Abinadab guy is. Not interlinear commentary. Okay. Upon a new cart. Come on. There we go. The new cart, one which had been used for no other purpose, was doubtless intended as a mark of respect, yet it was a violation of the law requiring that the ark should be borne by the Luim. It is not necessary to suppose that David intended to violate the law, but the ark having been left neglected for more than 2 generations, that's a long time. The exact requirements in regard to it may easily be passed out of mind. It says Abinadab himself may have been long since dead, and Uzzah and Achio may have been either his sons now advanced in life or his grandsons. So yeah, they did not bring it out the way they were supposed to. My page does not want to go up.
Christy just put something in chat.
What did you say, Christy?
The man that touched the ark was David's friend.
Uh,
Okay.
Okay, it says, Benson commentary says, it was set upon a new ark, which ought to have been carried upon the shoulders of the Kohathites, for which reason no wagons were allowed to them, as there were to the rest of the Luim, to carry several parts of the tabernacle. It is matter of astonishment to me, says Delaney, how DeWitt and all the priests and people could fall into so great an error and deviate so strangely from the plain precepts of the law of Elohim in this point, which expressly prohibited any but the priest to touch the ark upon pain of death. So it's already there in the word here. Numbers 4:5 says, and when the camp sets forward, Aharon shall come and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil and cover the ark of testimony with it. Okay, and when Aharon and his sons have made an end of covering the sanctuary and all the vessels of the sanctuary as the camp is to set forward, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it, but they shall not touch any kadosh thing, lest they die. These things are the burden of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it goes on to say, and any but the Luim to carry it. The best apology that can be made for them is that David now succeeded to the throne after a long, irreligious reign in which the ark and everything relating to it were utterly neglected, especially after the massacre of all those priests whose peculiar business it was to attend the tabernacle, all but one young man, and who were in all probability the only priest of that realm that had ever seen it or knew anything of its rituals. And there was not then probably any one priest or Louis alive who had ever seen it removed. In short, the public worship of Elohim had long been discouraged and neglected in Israel. And with that, the study of the scriptures, except so much as was absolutely necessary for the administration of the civil affairs of the state. Would to Elohim, Israel were the only nation upon which this sad truth could at any time be pronounced. Add to all this that DeWitt and his people had now been for many years immersed in wars, and the voice of religion as well as reason is often drowned in the din of arms. It is true the Philistines had about 90 years before removed the ark with impunity, in the same manner as the Israelites did now, but they forgot that what was pardonable in the Philistines might be highly criminal in the Israelites, because the Philistines were ignorant of Elohim's laws, but the Israelites knew, or might have known, that YaHuWaH commanded that the Louis should bear the ark upon their shoulders, but their present transports of joy on account of the happy change of their affairs and their greedy desire of having the ark of Elohim removed made them inconsiderate. Matthew Henry says, Elohim is present with the souls of his people when they want the outward tokens of his presence. But now DeWitt is settled in the throne, the honor of the ark begins to revive. Let us learn hence to think and to speak highly of Elohim, and to think and speak honorably of Kadosh ordinances, which are to us as the ark was unto Israel, the tokens of Elohim's presence. Matthew 28:20. Mashiach is our ark. In and by him, Elohim manifests his favor and accepts our prayers and praises. The ark especially typified Mashiach and his mediation, in which the name of YaHuWaH and all his esteems are displayed. The priests should have carried the ark upon their shoulders. Philistines may carry the ark in a cart without suffering for it, but if Israelites do so, it is at their peril, because this was not what YaHuWaH appointed. So again, they're saying the Israelites should have known better. They took it without research in how this had to be done.
Yeah.
All right. Back to 2 Samuel 6. All right. So the next footnote says in verse 10, pull this up, says he was a Louis who had lived in Gath. DeWitt would not move the ark of YaHuWaH. All right, so he turned it aside to Obed Edom. So this was a man from the tribe of Louis. And it says he lived in Gath. Okay, verse 22 has a footnote. It says, unlike you, the maidservants of whom you have spoken so contemptuously will honor me for my humbleness before YaHuWaH. They have Hashem in there. Humbleness before YaHuWaH. And then verse 23 has a footnote. As a punishment for her haughtiness, she bore no children after this incident, but she had given birth previously. The sages interpret no child until the day of her death to mean that she died in childbirth. Wow. Okay, that's a different interpretation, yeah? The sages interpret no child until the day of her death to mean that she died in childbirth. Wow.
I'm just reading back up there in verse 18. The burnt offering and the peace offering. And he baruched the people in the name of YaHuWaH Shavuot.
Yeah.
That was yeah.
And that's what we were just reading about this in the Torah about Aharon. The footnotes were telling you this was the first time that the people were baruch by the priest. And so here DeWitt and we had just come out of, by the way, the function of the priest tribe. But here David is doing the baruching of the people. But that was a priestly thing that the priests were doing. So that's
I have a note. note somewhere when it comes that Moshe, or is that further up? Moshe and Aaron, when they ended up coming out and they both baruched the people,
Awesome.
and it wasn't just Moshe at one stage, it was both the high priest. You think of the spiritual part of
Yeah.
this. Moshe, who was a prophet,
Yeah.
Mashiach is unto him, and Aaron the high priest. So they've both come out to baruch the people. That was back in the book of
Yeah.
Leviticus, and it's just like, wow, that makes so much sense. That was in 22, Leviticus 9.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think we just read it today.
22. Yeah. They raised their hands towards the people, and they stood with their hands open. Both the prophet, which is Moshe, and Aaron, the high priest, they go in together and they come out to root the people also.
Yeah.
That's when the fire came forth.
Right.
That was, yeah. So that's just beautiful. You've got the prophet and the high priest,
Yes.
who is baruching the people, the children of Yasharel. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. After that, then
Um,
that's when, in the footnote was saying, that's when Yahuwah gave them the priestly baraka at that point, or, you know, as a result of that. After that point, the one in Numbers chapter 6 that we know and love. All right, let's go on to chapter 7 here. The footnotes say in verse 3, Nathan had assumed that David should build the Kadosh temple, but Elohim overruled him. For about 450 years since the Exodus, there had been no temple, only a tent or a tabernacle, nor had Elohim requested one. The time was not yet ripe. Although Elohim had given David unprecedented barakot and renown, the era of complete serenity would not be at hand until the reign of his son.
Darla, can you just say again how many years that was?
450 about 450 years since the Exodus, it says in this footnote.
Thank you.
Yeah. But it says that the era of complete serenity would not be at hand until the reign of his son. I wonder if that was about 500 years then. Be interesting. Yeah. Elohim assured David that he would found a dynasty, and that his son Shlomo would build the temple. Elohim would be a loving father to Shlomo, even when it would be necessary to chastise him. Okay, and then verse 14, footnote says, I would chastise him as a father would a son, but not too severely, never abandoning my affection for him and never abrogating my promise concerning the permanence of your dynasty. Verse 19, footnote says, only a great man, not I, is deserving of such honor. And then verse 20, I need not praise you, for you know the deepest thoughts of my heart. Or what else could I request? You have granted all I could want. Verse 23, footnote says, since you are the one and only great Elohim, how fortunate are your people Israel that you have chosen. And then verse 27, only because you have told me that you desire to create a dynasty from me, have I dared to approach you with the request that my offspring rule forever. And it says, for you, O you of hosts, the Elohim of Yasharel, have revealed this to your servant, saying, I build you a house. Therefore, your servant has taken heart to pray this prayer to you. And now, O Master Yahuwah, you are Elohim, and your words are true, and you have spoken this Tobness to your servant. And now be pleased to barak the house of your servant to be before you forever. For you, O Master Yahuwah, have spoken it. And with your baraka, let the house of your servant be baruch forever.
That's having the same belief that Abraham did.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what stands out to me. Wow.
Yeah, he's basically saying, I believe what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
Okay, and then chapter 8. Did we go into chapter 8? I can't remember now.
No, I didn't think we
We did
did.
not go
but
into 8. Was it 6 and 7? I have to look in my little note here.
I have to look
Yeah,
at my
we just covered
notes.
6 and 7. Okay. So obviously the rest of it, we don't have any more stones to knocks because it's just the stone to knock notes. It's just the to knock. So we'll go and look at Matthew 3. Matthew 3. Oh, going in the wrong direction. There's my brain taking a siesta.
It's allowed to Shabbat.
Yes. All right. So 3, we're down at the end of this chapter. I think it's 11. I indeed immerse you in water unto repentance. But he who is coming after me, he shall immerse you in the Ruach HaKodesh and fire. His winnowing fork is in his hand, and he shall thoroughly cleanse his threshing floor and gather his wheat into the storehouse, but the chaff he shall burn with unquenchable fire. So then he comes, and I need to be immersed by you, and you come to me. Permit it now, for thus it is fitting for us to fill all righteousness.
That's totally opposite to what we started this off with when Aaron's sons were taken away. They thought that they were kadosh, but here is Yochanan saying that I'm not worthy. It's amazing how it's
Yeah.
total opposite.
Yeah. Let's look at this commentary on verse 15. Like, what is Yahushua talking about? It needs to fill all righteousness. To do whatsoever is just, fit, and requisite in our circumstances, or it becomes every messenger of Elohim and even every follower of mine to observe every divine appointment. Ooh. Observe every divine appointment. That's what we're doing right now with Sukkot.
That's every follower.
Yeah.
Messenger of Elohim and even every, wow.
Yeah. To observe every divine appointment and to honor every divine ordinance. I therefore offer myself to be immersed that I may show my readiness to obey all Elohim's righteous precepts and to justify Elohim and approve his counsel and celebrate his wisdom in sending you to prepare his and my way. So celebrate his wisdom in sending Yahuwah and the immerser to prepare his and my way by calling men to repentance, and in that way fitting them for the barakot of my kingdom, my sovereign reign. Our Adon's baptism or immersion tended, says Dr. McKnight, to promote the ends both of his own mission and of his forerunners, as it established the authority of both. It established Yahuwah's mission, great honor being done him by the Messiah's receiving his immersion. It established our Adon's mission also, for after he was immersed, the testimonies of the Ruach and voice from heaven were given him in the presence of the multitude assembled at Yarden. That these testimonies should have been given on this occasion rather than on any other was fit, because it was an august manner of opening our Adon's ministry, was the most public occasion that could be found, interesting public occasion, and pointed him out as Messiah to the immerser, who was thereby qualified for the principal duty of his mission. And this says, if it'll tell me, and I knew him not, but that he should be made manifest to Israel. Therefore am I come baptizing or immersing with water. So he's to be made manifest, and they've picked a public occasion, a most public occasion. By this we are taught a kadosh exactness in the observance even of those institutions which owe their obligations merely to a divine appointment. Surely thus it becomes all his followers to fulfill all righteousness. Yahushua had no sin to wash away, and yet he was immersed. And Elohim owned his ordinance so as to make it the season of pouring forth the Ruach HaKodesh upon him. And where can we expect this sacred effusion but in an humble attendance on divine appointments? Humble attendance on divine appointments. Where can we expect this sacred effusion but in an humble attendance on divine appointments? Then he suffered him. He that sins through ignorance will correct his error upon better information. See what Matthew Henry says. Mashiach's favorous condescensions are so surprising that even the strongest believers at first can hardly believe them. So deep and mysterious that even those who know his mind well are apt to start objections against the will of Mashiach. And those who have much of the Ruach of Elohim while here see that they need to apply to Mashiach for more. Mashiach does not deny that Yahuchanan had need to be baptized or immersed of him, yet declares he will now be immersed of Yahuchanan. Mashiach is now in a state of humiliation. Our Adon Yahushua looked upon it as well becoming him to fulfill all righteousness, to own every divine institution, and to show his readiness to comply with all Elohim's righteous precepts. In and through Mashiach, the heavens are open to the children of men. This descent of so now we're talking about descent again. We had descent of the fire earlier on the sacrifices, and now we've got the descent of the Ruach HaKodesh upon Mashiach, showed that he was endued with his sacred influences without measure. The fruit of the Ruach is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, tobness, belief, meekness, temperance. At Mashiach's immersion, there was a manifestation of the three persons in the sacred Trinity, the Father confirming the Son to be mediator, the Son solemnly entering upon the work, the Ruach HaKodesh descending on him to be through his mediation communicated to his people. In him, our spiritual sacrifices are acceptable, for he is the altar that sanctifies every gift. Out of Mashiach, Elohim is a consuming fire, but in Mashiach, a reconciled Father. That is so beautiful. This is the sum of the Besor, which we must by belief cheerfully embrace. So out of Mashiach, Elohim is a consuming fire, but in Mashiach, a reconciled Father. So beautiful.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. Okay. If there's not
The
any,
other thing that I noticed in the sacrifices, the bull.
Yeah.
No, just previously though, back in Leviticus, the bull represents the Father, the lamb represents the Son, and the turtle dove represents the Ruach HaKodesh.
What'd you say? The wolf?
The bull.
Oh, the bull. I'm so sorry. I heard wolf. The bull.
The bull.
Yes,
the bull.
of course. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. If there's not anything for Matthew, we'll go on over to Hebrews. Is that Tob, or does anybody want to talk any further about Matthew? We spent some time
I'm good.
looking at to fulfill all righteousness. I was actually hoping to find a verse there. What is he talking about? Fill all righteousness. I was hoping that there would be something that would tell us what is he talking about. But I didn't find it in those first couple there. Did you guys ever wonder what he's talking about? To fill, what is he, is there a verse that he's talking about that this needs to be filled? There's probably a Thompson chain reference on here that would tell us. You know how to get to
I
that?
always thought it was because, just like he said, I've come not to do away with the Torah, but to fulfill it. And in that aspect, fulfill was to walk it out before your eyes as the example of what you're to do when you follow him. And we are also to go get baptized as to follow him. He didn't need to be forgiven for sin, but we do. Therefore, to fulfill all righteousness, because he's the leader and we're supposed to follow him, he did this as an example of what we need to be doing.
Yes. And is there also something in Torah that tells us what he's filling? Is what I'm wondering. Tessa, do you know how to get to is it Thomas or Thompson chain reference? Does anybody know how to do that from Bible Hub? I have a feeling it's here.
It should be down there somewhere.
Let me see if I can get to it from this side.
See down just underneath, you've got all those names.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Let's see if it's under this guy.
No, back where you were.
Right in here.
Back where you were.
Well, I'm going to
Can you
go.
go?
Yeah, I was going to go over to Matthew from here. Matthew, we're in Matthew 3. I was just going to open a new window so I could get back over there quicker. Matthew 3, and then
Go to commentary.
Commentary.
Just
yeah. Is it up in
okay?
here?
So down the bottom there. Is it down in there? In those first lot.
I don't know what TTB is. I wonder if I could just put in Tom. I don't know if it's Thomas or Thompson. Oh, I gotta plug in my computer. Little laptop. It's saying I'm gonna need some energy soon. It's not quite red yet, but it's going in that direction. Okay. I wonder if I could, let me see if I can just do a I think it's Thomas chain reference. Thompson. Online. Let's see if we can just get in here and put in a scripture if possible. They want to sell them to us. So on archive. There's no telling if this will get me somewhere quickly or not. Okay, we can put in a scripture. Matthew 3. What verse was it? Fulfill. Okay, it's 3:15. Matthew 3:15. Let's see if we can. No, I don't want to sign up for things right now. 3:15. There may not be one that's there. Anyway, I think that's an interesting, we won't spend too much time on that, but I think it's interesting. What is he saying and is being filled? I'll probably spend some time later today digging into that a little bit. But then let's just go on now to Hebrews, because there's some amazing stuff in Hebrews as well. I think that is 7 and 8, 7 something and 8. Right at the beginning of 7. And then through 8.
There's a cross reference for it in Psalms 47.
Oh,
47, which I have come. It is written about me in the scroll, so I'm just wondering if it is everything that's written about him.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably spend some time trying to dig down on that a little bit today and see what comes up. Because I feel like he's probably not just making a random statement, but that it has to do kind of like how with DeWitt when they moved the ark, but they didn't go to look at the scriptures that said how to move this thing.
Well, in Hebrews 2:10, it talks about, for it became him for whom all things and by whom all things,
Yeah.
in being the son of esteem.
And it could be just about could be about mikveh washing. I'd like to know a little bit more about the immersion, the whole immersion thing. But I think there were the mikvahs where they washed clean and
Well, if you remember
spiritual.
when they were washing the inner parts of the sacrifices, they had to wash the right thigh and the heart and all the inner parts.
Yeah,
Which
that's
when you
profound right there.
when you think about that, that's washing your mind, your soul, your body, and your heart to want to follow him. That's my understanding of washing.
I think that's probably right there where I'm feeling like I'm looking for a connection on that. More
Okay.
understanding on it. I think that's probably where it's living, Teza.
Okay.
Okay, so let's look at Hebrews 7 in the first 6 verses of 8, because there was some amazing stuff in here as well. So we've got Melchizedek, which means sovereign of righteousness. Okay, and they tell us that here too. Sovereign of righteousness, that's Melchizedek. Okay, sovereign's like another word for king, but king is actually perverted English. We've got it in English. It's the name of like a deity. Sovereign of righteousness, and then also sovereign of Shalem. Okay, this is like kind of like our word Salem. It's the same shin letter. Sovereign of peace. Without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but having been made like the son of Elohim. So what do you guys think about this Melchizedek character? Made like the son of Elohim. He doesn't have a father or mother, no genealogy.
Right there. Having been made like the son of Elohim. He wasn't the son of it. That tells me he wasn't the son of Elohim. He was made like.
Yeah.
And when you go into the Targums and into, I think it is the book of Jasher, it talks about that Shem. Shem was
that's right.
Yeah, it says that Shem was Malik Zadik, the messenger of righteousness.
And before him, it was the son. Like when you trace it back, it was that firstborn who was bringing it along. So yeah, it's
the birthright.
Yeah, and
But
that's what Jacob
father.
sold.
He had a father and a mother. Shem did. What do you guys think about that? He had a father and a mother and a genealogy.
Sounds like there's something wonky with the scriptures. Someone's been adding stuff.
Yeah. Let's see.
Wonder what it says in the Hebrew scriptures.
I have heard that though. I've heard that it was Shem. I forgot about that. But yeah, he did have a father, a mother, genealogy. He was human. Interesting way of saying he's not human, right? He doesn't have a father, doesn't have a mother, no genealogy. He doesn't have a beginning of days nor an end of life.
Well, who does that remind you of?
I mean, it kind of reminds me of
Yahushua. Yahushua.
Yahusha is the only one that could ever match those requirements.
I've heard so many teachings on Melchizedek too, and I was so curious, and I've just heard not opposing things, but contradictory a little bit, and it's just like no definitive answers, really.
Yeah.
Well, okay then. If he gave a tenth to who? Okay, he gave a tenth to Melchizedek, right? the sovereign of righteousness. Who is our sovereign of righteousness? Who is the one, and whether you call it 1 in 3, 3 in 1, etc., etc. Who do we give our offerings to now? To Yahuwah.
Yeah.
He is without beginning. He's without end. That's what it tells me. It's like, who is the Alpha and Omega? Who is the Aleph and the Tav? Beginning and the end. That's what that tells me.
But it says, and of course we have the English of what it says here, but having been made like the son of Elohim.
Yeah.
So, having been made. So that wouldn't be Yahuwah.
I was just gonna say that,
With my daughter.
you know, it could be a lost in translation thing. Like,
Yeah, so could
you know,
be.
what does it say in the Aramaic? What does it say? And, you know,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
may
Could
not
we go
say
to
the
the
exact same thing.
Can we go to the interlinear Greek in that and see if it shows the Aramaic in it?
I think it was 7:3. Oh, interlinear. Sorry. Yeah, I'm in the interlinear.
Yeah, you're there.
Okay. Having been made like.
Can you hit on that? Does it say down there that it's anything to do with? No, doesn't seem to.
To assimilate closely, to make like, you know what makes me think about is how Yahuwah said, let us make man in our image. Kind of makes me think of that conversation. It's like, well, okay, this one was made in our image. And this one was made like the son of Elohim.
So does that tell you that that might be Adam? It started at him?
Well, guess what? That's one without father and without mother. Without genealogy. That's interesting, Teza.
So when we go down everything from then, who were the righteous in his bloodline?
Yeah.
Made like the son of Elohim. Well, there you go.
That's pretty interesting to think of that. That could be Adam. Now see how great this one was, to whom even the ancestor Abraham gave 1/10 of the choicest booty. I mean, it's really interesting when you think about it, because he's the only one that came without father and without mother, and he's been called the first Adam, where the Mashiach's been called the second Adam. So it really is an interesting idea.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think that this was, so it's talking about truly then, if perfection were through the Levitical priesthood, for under it the people were given the Torah, why was there still need for another priest to arise according to the order of Melchizedek and not be called according to the order of Aharon?
For the priesthood being changed of necessity, there takes place to change the Torah also. Not laws, Torah.
For it is perfectly clear that our master arose from Yehuda, a tribe about which Moshe never spoke of concerning priesthood. And this is clear still if another priest arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become, not according to the Torah fleshly command, but according to the power of an endless life. For now we know that Adam, of course, he did die. In fact, his curse was death. For he does witness you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. For there is indeed a setting aside of the former command because of its weakness and unprofitableness. For the Torah perfected nothing but the bringing in of a better expectation through which we draw near, again, draw near to Elohim. And it was not without an oath. For they indeed become priests without an oath, but he became priest with an oath by him who said to him, Yahuwah has sworn and shall not regret, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. So I thought this
So
was
if you
an interesting point.
a priest of righteousness in the order
And
of
he would have been raised up again when Yahushua went down to Sheol and brought everybody up, right?
Mm-hmm. Melchizedek. Well, Melchizedek, of course, came along after Adam had died.
Right.
After the
when you read the
flood.
book of Noah, depending on what version you read, it mentions Melchizedek. I
Yeah,
can't say it.
Melchizedek.
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 So
Messenger of righteousness. It's like the word Malachi. Melchizedek. By as much as this, Yahushua has become a guarantor of a better covenant. And indeed,
if
those
another priest, sorry, if this is in 15 again, and this is clear still, if another priest arises in the likeness.
yeah,
So there you ended up saying before.
Yep.
First Adam, second Adam.
yeah.
And that goes with the pattern right from the beginning. Wasn't the first, it was the second son. In most of them. It wasn't Abraham's first son, but it was his second son, but the first of the promise. It wasn't Esau, it was Jacob, the second son. The one Perez and
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. It was the second son. The one that put the hand out, come out first, but it was second.
Yeah.
There's just so much pattern. There's no happenstance in it. No coincidences.
It says he has become not according to the Torah of fleshly command, but according to the power of an endless life. Another
Hallelujah.
arises in the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become not according to the Torah of fleshly command, but according to the power of an endless life. That's how he became the priest in the likeness of Melchizedek. And then Yahuwah's witness, for he does witness, you are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek.
So they're promises, yes? Was he still talking about Yochanan there? No, Yochanan was
No.
Matthew.
Yeah. So then it says Yahushua has become a guarantor of a better covenant.
Hallelujah.
And then the ones that became priests were many because they die, they have to be perpetuated. But he, because he remains forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. Therefore, he's able to
Well, we're commanded to be priests and sovereigns, aren't we?
Yeah, and he talked about those that would follow him. We were reading about that in the commentary as well, that we need to do what is right as well. He is also able to save completely those who draw near, again, draw near to Elohim, those who draw near to Elohim through him, ever living to make intercession for them. He lives to make intercession for us. It was fitting that we should have such a high priest, kind, innocent, undefiled, having been separated from sinners and exalted above the heavens, who does not need, as those high priests, to offer up slaughter offerings day by day, first for his own sins and then for those of the people. For this he did once for all when he offered up himself. For the Torah appoints as high priests men who have weakness, but the word of the oath which came after the Torah appoints the Son, having, and we have this word appointing as well as in appointments, appoints this the word of the oath which came after the Torah appoints the Son, having been perfected forever. So one priest. Anything
But
else in this chapter?
Didn't you end up saying back in when we were in Leviticus that YaHuWaH is mercy?
Yeah,
It's
the name
Yeah.
was mercy. And it was in the context of these offerings being offered up.
So here is our final offering.
And then they're going to summarize it here. The author here is going to summarize it here. The summary of what we are saying is we have such a high priest who is seated at the right hand of the throne of the greatness in the heavens and who serves in the Kodesh place and of the true tent, which Yahuwah set up and not man. Okay. Just like he set up his clock in the heavens, not man.
The heavenly tabernacle
Heavenly tabernacle.
is
For
on earth as it is in heaven.
Yeah, and he makes a point of that too. It says, as Moshe was warned when he was about to make the tent, for he said, see that you make all according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. He says, for every high priest is appointed to offer both gifts and slaughters. So it was also necessary for this one to have somewhat to offer. For if indeed he were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are priests who offer the gifts according to the Torah, who serve a copy and shadow of the heavenly. But now he has obtained a more excellent service, inasmuch as he is also mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. I think we went on and read, or at least I did this one, went on and read the rest of this. I can't remember if we did it in the recording or not, from Nathan reading it to us, Nathan Reynolds, but it says, for if that first covenant had been faultless, then no place would have been sought for a second. For finding fault with them, he says, see, the days are coming, says Yahuwah, when I shall conclude with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah a renewed covenant, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day when I took them by the hand to lead them out of the land of Mitzrayim, because they did not continue in my covenant, and I disregarded them. So did not continue equals disregarding. Because this is the covenant that I shall make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahuwah, giving my laws in their mind. And I shall write them on their hearts.
That's what you ended up reading, Darla, in the commentary early. There was 450 years or something. You said 500 with from coming from the Exodus.
Yeah, to Dawid wanting to make the temple. Yeah. The house for Yahuwah.
I love that in 10. It's promises. That's promise.
Yeah. Yeah, so when the laws are written in the mind and on the hearts, and he says, And they shall by no means teach each one his neighbor and each one his brother, saying, Know Yahuwah, because they all shall know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, because I shall forgive their unrighteousness and their sins and their lawlessnesses. I shall no longer remember. By saying renewed, he has made the first old. Now what becomes old and growing aged is now disappearing. So he's saying that the Torah is now going to be written in their minds. His laws, Yahuwah's laws, are going to be written in people's minds. And interesting that this is a singular mind, in their mind. And I shall write them on their hearts, and I shall be their Elohim, and they shall be my people.
Well,
So
that's
hearts is
Jeremiah
plural.
3. He will write the Torah on our hearts.
Yeah. So that is the renewed covenant right there. It's internal.
And it's happening now. He's putting how many people are coming back to Torah.
Yeah.
He's doing that.
Yes. Yes, for sure. That is happening. That is happening.
Because in Hosea also, it says, for mercy I desire, not sacrifice. And the knowledge of Elohim is more than burnt offerings. It's
beautiful.
just the knowledge of him.
So they called him, in the previous chapter, they called him a guarantor of a better covenant. And here they call him a mediator of a better covenant, which was constituted on better promises. Wow. Better promises.
Eternal life without sin. Because we're a part of the new covenant due to having Torah written on our hearts. So
Yeah.
we hear and obey. And Yeshua,
Yes.
Yahuwah sees our hearts to see if, that big word, if we obey, to be meek, humble, kind, and gentle. You know, so
Teza, do you think that this is Teza and Scarlett and Leah and Karina's still here if she's not napping right now? Do you think that this is something we will then see in every, obviously most people, not everybody's going to turn to Yahuwah. They're going, but would it be written in their hearts and then they have to reject that? What do you think?
ask the question one more time, please.
Okay, so it says, this is the covenant that I make with the house of Israel. Okay, so this is the house of Israel. And in theory, this could be 12 tribes people, all of their descendants. It says,
Those that are coming back to the covenant.
yeah, giving my laws in their mind, and I shall write them on their hearts, and they shall be my people. So this is not necessarily on all people's hearts, but the house of Israel, their descendants, those that would return. It doesn't mean everybody's going to have it written on their hearts, or does it? Well, it says they shall know means teach one his neighbor, because they shall all know me, from the least of them. So it looks like it's suggesting that it's going to be written on every heart. But we know that the book of Revelation doesn't end with everybody turning to Yahuwah. Would you think that it's written on their hearts, but there will be some that, obviously a lot, that will reject what's written on their heart. They will know it, but they will betray their hearts. What do you think?
What are your thoughts, Scarlett? Christy? Christopher said, I agree, Sister Darla, apostasy.
Yeah,
I
I've
think
only
it's
got a few of us on here, and great. There's Christy. I didn't see her with there's like 4 people on here, 5 maybe.
there's more than that.
Yeah,
There's 6.
Yeah, there's Christy on the end. I didn't see her on the end because I've only got 5 on here. If I had maybe more on here, I wouldn't see the screen in front of us, but glad you're still here with us, Christy. Yeah.
I think that everyone's had the chance throughout throughout time to search his ways. Those who are coming into the understanding of what is written in the beginning of the book,
Mhm.
and they know the end, like they've read the end of the book. So they're reading the beginning of the book. And that
Yeah.
very end book, it says, those who keep my commands and
Yes.
have the testimony of Mashiach, those ones,
Yes.
they're the ones that there's promises to.
They're going to
That's
overcome. Yeah.
That's my understanding. I'm happy to hear another.
Well, it says that they will all know me. So that says those who keep the commands of Elohim and have the testimony of Yahushua. They will all know him, from the least of them to the greatest, from the least of them to the greatest of them. They're all going to know Yahuwah.
Well, it says that at the end, every knee shall bow.
Yeah.
Everyone will know that that is him.
But first he says it's going to be the house of Israel. And then he says, I shall forgive their unrighteousness and their sins and their lawlessnesses, and I shall no longer remember.
Well, he starts at the house of,
Yeah.
he starts at the house. Scarlett, what are your thoughts on this, sister? Marina? Christy? Leah? Christy just put.
Well,
Christy says, I think it's people who are knowing it. It is not a game, and you have two choices, heaven or Sheol, and it is eternal.
yeah. There's got to be, if this is true, that he is going to, that all people are going to know him, that would have to mean that they will betray the knowledge they have in their heart if they do not, if they're not completely aligned with Yahuwah and they're not obedient and showing their love for him through their obedience. That would mean that they have to betray something he's putting in their hearts.
Okay, who was Torah? Who was the Torah written for? Who was it set apart? Who were to be set apart?
The 12
So he's
tribes.
not talking. Yeah, he's not talking about all the other nations
So
out
he's
there.
just talking about Israel's descendants, offspring, whether they be physical or spiritual, those that would obey him.
Yeah.
So then that you think, Teza, that this does not mean that when he's saying all, he's just speaking about all of Israel.
Well, all of Israel, when they were back in the wilderness,
Yeah.
they all knew.
Yeah, they all knew him. Sure.
I don't think it's for those that are in, it wasn't for those in Mitzrayim, it wasn't for those that were in Canaan, it wasn't those for throughout the dispersed,
Yeah.
all the rest of the world. I really, that's just the way that I'm seeing it.
Yeah. Plus, there was the whole the ark where only Noah and his descendants and wife made it, and their wives made it on the ark. There was plenty evil and wickedness that well, they had a chance to hear him, but none of them turned. He was preaching.
120 years he preached for. It was the last 5 years he built the ark.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the rain came, like that door was closed a week before.
Yeah.
What's that week? What's that door? Who's the door? Who's that gateway?
I know Yahuwah shut the door.
Mm.
Yeah. Yahuwah shut the door. Well, this is a great place to end, I think, you guys, sisters. You sisters.
Have a beautiful rest of Sukkot.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Darla.
Oh, thank you,
Um,
Karina. We're glad you were here, and thanks for you guys sisters showing up. And may you all have a wonderful Sukkot, this appointed
Thank
time.
you.
Draw near to Yahuwah. I think that was the theme of today. Draw near to Yahuwah. I think it's such a beautiful theme for this week. I
I
mean,
want to be Velcro to his
Amen.
leg.
there you go. There's a visual. I'm going to hold on to that.
Yep,
Not
binding
the
ourselves
regular
to
Velcro, that mighty Velcro.
I mean the
Industrial.
non-slip Gorilla Glue Velcro.
Yeah. Yeah, just lasso yourself on there.
I can visualize that. That's great, Christy.
We're gonna
Yeah, that's
need it. We're
Yeah,
gonna need it.
right. Well, draw
that's
near.
a true binding ourselves to him. Let
Yeah,
everything else go away. Hallelujah.
I think that's beautiful.
Shalom, everyone. I love you.
Shalom,
And
sister.
have
Thank you.
a great week with Yah and Yeshua. And may he bless you
Yeah.
abundantly. Barak you abundantly.
Yahuwah Barak you,
Thank you,
sisters.
sister.
Same
Shalom.
to you, sister.
Yeah,
To everyone.
Shalom, y'all.
Shalom.
Shalom. Toda.
Good